Hi, my name is Oko Owi Ocho. I'm a poet and the founder and creative director for Benue Poetry Troupe and Abuja Poetry Troupe. And first, I'll be reading for my debut chapbook titled We Will Sing Water. And the title of the poem is How Does One Inherit Grief? How does one inherit grief and not old history questions? Memories fall from stars and torment us with chains. How is this memory ours when our body is outside the slave ship, yet our soul is sailing on the ocean with an oar that rumbles the water into agony? We are not in America, but the voice of every dead black soul transposes us into an inheritance of grief. Inside a chapel in Adoka, the priest said, "May the souls of the faithful depart." The communion inside our mouth turned into chunks of black bodies, still wet with blood. A voice stood up from a mouth that wasn't ours, requesting we peep on the side of the crucifix. It was not a white Christ choked by the police. It was a black angel holding a fragile hallelujah in his mouth. We wanted to throw our eyes away from the manifest of violence, but the flesh inside our mouth was still enough to keep our hearts focused on a grief of 40 decades children inherit, sailing through the middle passages of memory. Thank you. So for poems that I love, I'll be doing a poem by one of my favorite poets of all time. And this poet, still Cheney-Coker, the Sierra Leonean poet. I've always loved his poetry, not because of the influence of Chikaya in his writing, which he actually acknowledges. Because in his book, Concerto for an Exile, the first poem titled Traveler, he actually dedicated it to Chikaya. And when you read the poems, you can actually feel the impact, the influence, choice of words, structure, and everything. And beyond Cheney-Coker's activist lifestyle, you know, he actually happened to be one of the poets with the most authentic metaphors. So I tend to rake him with the likes of Chikaya Otamsi, Ni Yoshundare, and Christopher Okigbo. You know, so there's this poem of his, Freetown, which is also quite popular. And I love this poem because for me, no matter the time you read it, you get to feel the impact. You know, because we often think Africa is liberated already, but from the eyes of Cheney-Coker, you get to discover that colonial violence is not something that lives in time. You know, so I'll be reading Freetown. Africa, I have long been away from you, wandering like a Fulani cow. But every night I miss the horrors of highway death and the menace of neon-eyed gods. I feel the warmth of your arms, centrifugal mother reaching out to your sons. We with our different designs, innumerable facets, but all calling you mother, womb of the earth. Liking your image, but hating our differences, because we have become the shame of your race. And now on this third anniversary of my flight, my heart becomes a citadel of disgust, and I'm unable to write the poem of your life. My creation haunts me behind the mythical dream, my river dammed by the poisonous weeds in its bed. And I think of my brothers with black skin and white mask. I myself am one. My sisters who plaster their skins with the white cosmetics to look whiter than the snows of Europe, but listen to the suffering of our hearts. There are those who, when they come to plead, say make us black Englishmen, decorated Afro-Saxons, Creole masters, leading native races, but we African wandering urchins who will return one day, say, oh, listen, Africa, the tom-toms of the revolution beat in our hearts at night, make us the 700 parts of your race, stretching from the east to the west, but united inside your womb, because I've dreamt in the shadows of Freetown, crashing under the yoke of its ferocious civilization. Okay, so still part of the poems I love. There is this poet whom I read in secondary school. It was my literature and history teacher, AJ Dagatola, who also happened to be the one that offered me the gift of poetry and the gift of writing. So I remember one day I was in his office and I can't remember the poet I was talking about, but he was like, yeah, Ocho, there's a poet I believe you need to read. His name is Hyginus, Ekwuazi. When I'm coming to school tomorrow, I'll bring a copy of his Love Apart for you. You know, and when I read Hyginus Ekwuazi, I also discovered the authenticity in his writing. You know, so Ekwuazi is a poet whose aesthetic appeal borders on intermingling of subjects. So he writes a love poem, but the love poem is ultimately political. So you can be talking to his lover and he's telling her about the country, which of course still leads me to mention Yoshindare again, because there's a poem of his that he wrote for his lover, and he was telling the lady that, look, because of NEPA and the killing in the country, I'm unable to write to you about love, which of course is a love poem, you know, but then it also factors in the social political issues that we are facing. So on that note, I'll be reading from Hyginus Ekwuazi's Love Apart, and the poem I'm reading is titled Though I Swore to You, from page 52. Though I swore to you, like Okigbo's lovers, who sing tongue-tied without name or audience, making harmony among the branches, with words too sublime for human tongue, and to presence only the heart can see, you and I swore to each other. Wherever thou goest, I will go. Thy people will be my people, thy God my God. But how was I to know that he who suckled the same breast with the mother that gave you life would dance and cavort with those who stole our votes and are milking us dry? Standing on our misappropriated votes, they push the cost of bread way above our reach. They make laws to rid the camel of state of its hump, and they swear to us that the handwriting on the wall is either the handwriting of the enemy or the advert for a Nigerian home video showing on the Africa Magic channel. They have refused to pay the poultry keepers who labor from sun up to sundown, and standing on our misappropriated votes, they fly where the fancy pilots them in search of new ways to pouch an egg. How was I to know that the hand that directly handed the mother's milk to the breast that gave you suck will be among the hands digging our grave? Soon, too soon for them to fill the graveyard with our days, our anger will strip them naked in the marketplace of the world. Be not amazed, beloved, when that happens, that these hands that have grown tender from holding you, these hands that have no memory of violence, these same hands of mine will cast the first stone. For how could I love you and not hate those who today are eating up our tomorrow? The woman who accepts that love for which a child had to be killed, what peace can she bring? Thank you.